First thing I'm going to say is that I'm not a pathologist by trade, so just bear with me here. This is work from Dustin McLean, a PhD candidate in University of Saskatchewan, working for Dr. Randy Kuchar. What we have up here is a map of all the different sites they had across Western Canada. They really wanted to get all the different soil zones, a lot of the different geographic conditions, and show what's going on. So I have just a couple slides, basically an executive summary of what they found in this trial. They were looking at leaf spotting, septoria, stripe rust, all that kind of stuff, as well as Fusarium head blight. This is just going to look at the leaf spotting side of things. So what they did was they had a biological type fungicide, systemic, and a protective kind of fungicide. This first graph, what it does is it combines all those to the different timings. So they looked at different fungicides and then different timings. So what they saw was a significant decrease in the disease severity by using fungicide, which we'd expect to see. In this case, the disease severity went down from about 30% for all the unsprayed checks averaged across the locations to about 5 to 10% with the use of a fungicide. In this case, the difference between the flag leaf and both timings, as well as the flowering spray timing and both timings, was significantly lower. So we saw the greatest reduction in disease severity when we applied fungicide at both the flag leaf and the flowering timings. And then we're going to look at the yield result that we'd expect to see when that happens. So this is the average yield across those same sites. We averaged about 4,200 kgs per hectare at the unsprayed check, significantly better for both the flag leaf flowering and both timings. What Ken was alluding to was the fact that we're often told if you're going to make a single application, probably the flag leaf is the best timing. What they found in this project was actually that the flowering timing is maybe a little bit more effective if you're going to make a single application. And that could just be due to the different geographical ranges that they had. Obviously, spraying at both timings is probably your best bet in terms of highest yield. But whether or not that's economical, I think, is going to depend on your growing system, how much you're pushing your yields. If you're trying to grow 180 bushel winter wheat, something Wheat Pete has said is that you're definitely going to want to try and do both timings. If you're a dryland farmer, this might not be as applicable. So certainly a single application at the flag, possibly or probably even the flowering might be your best option in that case. And then I've got one more slide, which is kind of an anomaly. So the last were the slides, the average data across all the sites. And unfortunately, our site kind of threw that off a little bit. So we have our unsprayed check on the far left. It was about 69 bushels an acre. Our two Prosero applications, the flag leaf timing and the single flowering timing, actually didn't have a significant yield effect in our case. But when we did the dual applications, we saw about 75 bushels an acre, which is probably a little bit significantly higher. But strangely, when we look at the other three on the right, we saw that tebuconazole at flag leaf had the greatest effect. And then the other timings, the flowering and both timings, didn't have that same increased yield effect. So this is kind of unfortunately one of those weird inconsistencies. It just shows you the reason why we average so much data and why we look for more of a general recommendation. There could be some anomalies in our growing season. We also didn't have a very high disease load this case in this year, so we're always cautious when we get results like this to jump to conclusions that we don't want to jump to. And that's it. That's my executive summary. If you have any questions, I can try and answer them. Otherwise, we'll move on. Who's up next, Ken? Oh, sure. I'll try and answer it if I can.
Just ignore the MLA. If I could, I hope you can help. In the last session before the election, the past member from Westlock, Barhead, I think, introduced a bill about allowing a certain amount of fusarium contamination in seeds. And my goodness, there's a whole different set of circumstances around our whole province. And one of the things that our caucus seemed to get bogged down in is could we have different levels, could we have different standards in Alberta, or do we need just one for all of Alberta? Can you, I asked to the amount of contamination allowed in a existing seed. You could attempt to answer that, I appreciate it.
So your question was, could we have different sets of standards within the province?
For Alberta, or do we need one for the entire province?
I'm definitely not an expert in this field, so I'm just throwing my ideas out there, I guess. I think in terms of fusarium, it's a difficult disease to manage, and obviously we want to keep it as low as possible. So I don't know. I'm going to have to kind of defer that to an expert. Maybe Ken can help me out on it, but.
No political questions allowed at our AGM.
Yeah. Do we have an expert in the audience that could help me out?
I have my own opinion, and you can take that with a grain of salt, but fusarium's here. And when it showed up in Edmonton, all of a sudden it was a problem. We've been dealing with it for a long time, and there are the strategy was designed to keep fusarium out. We're beyond that. It's about managing the pests now. So to say that zero tolerance is a reality just isn't. So we have to have acceptable levels so that we can deal with the pest properly. Does anyone else want to throw a comment out there? Go for it. I'm looking
Monica.
right at you.
Just to bolt on to what Ken already said, the issue with the existing protocol is fusarium is listed as being a pest in our Agricultural Pest Act. So that means that our pest control officers, who are our ag fieldmen, must do what is described in the Act, and that means it can't be in the seed. If there's a field, they're supposed to say you can't grow anything there. Well, that's just not reality. And so what many people are doing, Alberta seed growers, Alberta seed processors, members of the Fusarium Action Committee, what we're calling for is a revamp of that Pest Act, and we respect the fact that there may be municipalities within the province, in the Peace District, wherever, that feel that they're fusarium free. And again, if that's where they're at, that's fine. So what the members of the Pest Act or the Fusarium Action Committee are calling for is this revamp of the Pest Act, and at a very minimum, moving that fusarium from being classified as being a pest to being a nuisance. Because then if that happens, municipalities can treat it as a pest, so they can elevate it, so then that keeps our people in the Peace District happy. But if you're farming in the Highway 3 corridor here, growing durum wheat, zero is not an option. It hasn't been an option for decades, actually. And being a nuisance, then those agricultural pest officers can treat it according to their area. And again, sitting here with a seed grower, you know, the comment from the seed industry is, gee, I'd love to have a breeder seed of variety XYZ, but that's all bred at Indian Head, Saskatchewan. There's no way I can get zero tolerance breeder seed, so then we can't get breeder seed. So Alberta is at a disadvantage for some of these new varieties. So that's the rest of the story. This issue is very deep. Just about 10 days ago, Canadian Seed Trade Association met with the Ag Minister and tried to have a conversation. But again, because there's this really wide varying opinion on what the level should be, then it's basically shelved right now. So, but thank you very much for bringing the subject up. We're very, very happy that there is a little bit of actually acknowledgement that this has to be looked at. So thank you very much.
So to bring it back to the agronomy, the take home from this last project was that the results have been showing that you can control fusarium at a head stage without necessarily compromising your leaf disease, which is sort of an important trade-off that we're able to manage in southern Alberta, especially under irrigation. Mike is actually up again. He is the star of today, next up with plant growth regulators.
Okay, perfect. Well, when I was up at in Edmonton at Farm Tech, I had a chance to hang out with Phil a little bit and kind of get the lowdown on what's going on with the manipulator and the in the industry. So it's been in the news a little bit, this product. Basically what's happened is the US and some of the other companies that are taking grain don't have the MRLs, the maximum residue limit, set. There's this kind of standard global codex that they could use, and for whatever political reasons have chosen not to. Kind of the irony that he alluded to when I was talking to him was that the MRLs that these individual countries are trying to set up for the use of quinclorac might actually end up being higher and more tolerant than the actual codex that they could be using. So unfortunately, if you're in the situation where you haven't been able to sell grain that's been treated, it kind of sucks that way that it's probably going to be fine. They're just waiting for all this political stuff to go through. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with PGRs, that's a plant growth regulator. Sorry, I just got my wife's almost ready to deliver baby. I just got to make sure she's not phoning me. I felt the phone go off. So yeah, it could be any time in the next couple of weeks. It's just freaking me out. Yeah, please don't prank me, okay? So the PGRs are the plant growth hormones, and they just disrupt the normal growth and development of the plant. Ideally, they're going to shorten and really strengthen the straw, especially under high fertility irrigation type conditions. They use them over in Europe a lot too, where they have high moisture kind of conditions and high fertility. And ideally, they want to preserve the yield potential of the crop. So for this trial, we set it up as there's two kind of factors we looked at: the nitrogen rate over on the left, and then the application timing over on the right. So we had about 100 kgs per hectare of background nitrogen. We set this up onto the new piece of land across the street under the pivot, so we could really kind of push the fertility conditions. We left a check at 0 additional nitrogen. We added 100 kgs of actual N as kind of our standard treatment, and then we tried to push it as much as we could to try and get some lodging and see if we could see some differences that way. And then for application timings, we have another check. The 3 to 4 leaf timing kind of coincide with the herbicide timing to make things easier for anybody using the product. The Zadex 30 to 31 is the ideal range. They'd like you to apply a manipulator, especially if you're using maybe a different PGR as well. That's kind of usually the ideal timing. Some of them are really, really specific. In this case, manipulator is a little more forgiving. You're not going to have as big of a wreck, I think, if you miss exactly that ideal timing. And then the flag leaf or the fungicide timing. This is just a little picture of each of those timings that you probably can't see. This next one I think you can. That's just to kind of show you a little better what this 30 to 31 ideal timing looks like. That's basically, I watched a little video yesterday, it's basically when the stem is coming up and you get that first node up above the soil and you can start to feel the stem hardening. You've got about a centimeter between the internodes and they're starting to harden up, and you're getting close to the flag leaf right after. So here we see the average biomass for on the left the fertility and on the right the timing. So as we increase the fertility, we saw the biomass increase significantly. Then when we look at the application timings, we saw a nice numerical trend, the 30 to 31, which is the ideal timing for manipulator. We saw a lower biomass. We saw it highest in the check and the 3 to 4 leaf, and then kind of in between for the flag leaf. I don't think there was any statistical significance in this case, which kind of makes sense. I mean, when we took biomass, we went out there, we cut the entire plant above ground, did a couple meter sections, so there probably wasn't enough difference in that case to really show, but we can see the trend numerically. But it does show up when we look at the average height. So when we look at the heights, the fertility had a slight increase as we moved up in fertility, but really we saw that the 30 to 31 timing, our average height was about 82, 83 centimeters, while the the check stayed up above about 100 centimeters. So we saw almost like 7-8 inches decrease in the height, and that's averaged across all the different fertility. And then we saw the flag leaf was next best, about maybe 85, 86, and then followed by the 3 to 4 leaf. So that's good news for anybody who's really concerned about actually shortening the straw and making sure they don't have any lodging problems. Then when we look at the yield, we saw our 1.25 time was probably actually our best yielding. So I think next year we only added, that's about 100 or 225 kgs per hectare total N. I think we're going to try and maybe push that a little more. We haven't tended to see lodging. I think maybe we didn't choose the best variety. I'm trying to remember which one we used, but we also have for this study we have a variety trial, so we can look at some of the responses to different varieties grown in Western Canada, see what happens there. But we didn't quite set it up this year the way we wanted to, so we'll have something to share probably in a few years on that. Then when we look at the yield for the timings, it goes up from the check, 3 to 4 leaf, 30 to 31, and then actually the flag leaf was the highest yielding. It wasn't significantly different than the 30 to 31, but I think in all we had really good growing conditions this year. So it's good to see something that's holds some promise and looks like it works, and hopefully the industry and the regulations can follow. So anybody who's looking forward to using stuff like this out on their farm can do so safely and economically. Yeah, that's it.
Any questions for Mike? You only use the one PGR?
In this case, yeah, this one was done for Engage Agro. We only use the one. I think there's a few other winter wheat studies we've been working on where I think they're looking at ethyl and a few other PGRs. Trinexapac ethyl is another one. In this case, yeah, we just used the one, and yeah, like I said, it was unfortunate kind of oversight when we set up the variety trial. It would have been nice to see kind of with and without for a range and kind of different lodging conditions and varietal conditions, but we just kind of didn't set it up quite right. So yeah, Herb?
Is that wheat or barley?
Oh, sorry, this is on wheat. Yeah.
What variety is spring wheat?
Yeah, it was a spring wheat, and I'm trying to remember which variety it was. I think it might have just been CDC. I want to say Go, but I don't think we chose that one for this because I think he had a different one in mind.
Mike, did you measure like lodging as a percentage of the area seeded or anything like that?
Well, we were going to, but actually that's what I was saying. Even at the 1.5 times nitrogen rate, we didn't get any lodging, and so I think that was kind of one of the oversights. So we wanted to kind of, I think you kind of, because we only chose one variety in this study, I think they wanted to highlight the difference in the stem elongation as opposed to necessarily the lodging, and I think the variety might have just had a good lodging resistance to it. So that might have been what happened there. But actually, even in the variety trial, we had, I think, 12 different varieties, all at that one-time N rate. We didn't have any lodging whatsoever. Like, you walked by and everything was bolt upright. But again, they were all sprayed with a PGR in that case. So
Largely, the yield increase is attributable not to the fact that you left it on the ground, but because, for whatever reason, the PGR contributed to more energy and put it towards the grain production as opposed to the stem production or whatever.
yeah.
What was that comment? Sorry.
Can you say that again?
I was just
Lee's comment was that there was a statistical improvement on yield on one of the treatments, but because there was no physical lodging, then obviously that yield gain was not from the lodging effect. Probably better harvest index. Any other questions? Join me in thanking Mike.